Hello friends, how are you doing? And I hope you all are doing good and exceptionally well. So today we are going to discuss the NEET pattern exercise for neural control and coordination chapter, right? Let us start from the first question. Stimulation of a muscle fiber by motor neuron occurs at, right? So what we see here that there is a muscle fiber, right, and a motor neuron, right? So we all know that if there is an impulse which is traveling, right, if there is a neuron we are talking about, okay, and this is the muscle fiber, right? If this is this is the cyton, this is the axon, right, and these are the dendrites and all that, right? So the axonal ending, the dendrites and all that, right, and this is the muscle fiber. So what this question tries to say, that yes, this muscle fiber is being stimulated, okay, this muscle fiber is stimulated by this motor neuron. This motor neuron is bringing the motor impulses, whether it will tell this muscle fiber to contract if this is a muscle, or the gland to secrete any hormone, okay, in that way. So what we see, this junction between the muscle fiber, right, between the muscle fiber and the motor neuron is called as the neuromuscular junction, the NMJ, or the motor end plate. So I can write this as the junction between the muscle fiber, right, the junction between the muscle fiber and the motor neuron and the motor neuron is called as neuromuscular junction, right, is called as neuromuscular junction, or the motor end plate, right. So the junction between the muscle fiber and the motor neuron is called as the neuromuscular junction and the motor end plate. What we will see here, that there will be release of the chemical which is called the acetylcholine, which at the synaptic okay, this space over here, this is called as the synapse, right, synapse. And in this synaptic junction, what we see, there will be the release of the chemical, the neurotransmitter, which is called as the acetylcholine, okay. So right, the stimulation of the muscle fiber by a motor neuron occurs at the neuromuscular junction. This is going to be the correct answer for this one. Let us move on to the next question. Right. Which part of the human ear plays no role in hearing as such, but is otherwise very much required, right? Eustachian tube, organ of Corti, vestibular apparatus, and neurosicles. The correct option for this would be the vestibular apparatus. Now the vestibular apparatus lies above the cochlea, right? And this part of the human ear plays a very important role in balance and maintaining the balance and posture, right? Because it has the receptors called the crista and macula, which play an important role in maintaining or the balance and the posture. So the vestibular apparatus, right? The vestibular apparatus lies above the cochlea, right? The vestibular apparatus lies above the cochlea and has receptors called the macula, right, and the cristae, and has receptors called as the macula and cristae, or crista, whatever, which plays an important role which plays in an important role in maintaining the posture and balance. Right. The vestibular apparatus lies above the cochlea and has a receptor called as the macula and cristae, which plays a very important role in maintaining the posture and balance. Hence, we see that it is not, it is not as such involved in hearing as such, but it senses the gravity, it senses and maintains that equilibrium, the posture and the balance of the body, and that is why this vestibular apparatus is also very important, right? Now we will talk about the third question. Right? The purplish red pigment rhodopsin contained in the rods type of photoreceptor cells of the human eyes. Okay? So the purplish red pigment rhodopsin, which is also called as a visual purple, contained in the rod type of photoreceptor cells of the human eye is a derivative of. So the retina of the eye, we can say the retina of the eye has two types of photoreceptors, the retina of the eye has two types of photoreceptors. And what are these two types of photoreceptors which are present in the retina of the eye? These are the rods and the cones. These are the rods and the cones, and we will see that these rods contain what? These rhodopsin pigment have the rhodopsin, also called as the visual purple, which is a derivative of vitamin A, right? Which is a derivative of vitamin A, which is a derivative of vitamin A. right. So hence is the derivative of vitamin A. We can simply write this as, right, the C. Okay. We'll talk about the next question now. The nerve centers which control the body temperature and the urge for eating are contained, okay, are contained in where? The hypothalamus, the pons, the cerebellum and the thalamus, right. So the answer we all know, the hypothalamus is that part of the body which is called as the body stat, sorry, the thermostat. This is the correct option, the answer for this question. The hypothalamus is a part of the forebrain, right. The hypothalamus is a part of the forebrain. It is a part of the forebrain and and is responsible for controlling the temperature and is responsible for controlling the temperature of the body, and hence that is the reason why it is also called as the thermostat of the body, okay, and is responsible for controlling the temperature. What a nice line. The temperature of the body and thus also called as the thermostat, thus also called as the thermostat of the body. Right. So the hypothalamus is a part of the forebrain and is responsible for controlling the temperature of the body, and thus is also called as the thermostat of the body. So the correct answer for this would be the hypothalamus, right. Also the hypothalamus controls, it also controls the urge for eating and drinking. This also controls the urge for eating and drinking. Okay, so this also controls the urge for eating and drinking. So the nerve centers which control the body temperature and the urge for eating are contained in the hypothalamus. Right. Let's talk about the next question. Cornea transplant in human eye is almost never rejected. This is because, right. So the cornea is a white transparent portion present in the anterior part, okay. It covers 1/6 part of the eyeball, okay, anteriorly, and that it is this part which receives the light and focuses the light, okay, onto the retina. So the cornea is vascular, and this is the reason because of its avascularity, that is it has no blood supply, that it will be, the corneal transplant will be never be rejected, okay. So when we are talking about this, the cornea transplant, so cornea is the white transparent right, cornea is a white transparent portion, part of the anterior eyeball which covers, right, which covers 1/6 part of anterior eyeball. So cornea is a white transparent part of the anterior eyeball which covers 1/6 part of the anterior eyeball, and it focuses light, onto right, and it focuses light onto the retina. So it is focusing light onto the retina. Now this cornea is avascular. Cornea is avascular, and hence, so cornea is avascular, and hence the corneal transplant will never be a failure, will almost never be a failure. So cornea is avascular, and hence the corneal transplant will almost never be a failure. So corneal transplant in humans is almost never rejected. This is because it has no blood supply, and this will be the correct answer for this. Right. Let us go to the next question. Bowman's glands are located where? Now these Bowman glands, these are actually the olfactory glands which are present in the olfactory epithelium, okay, and their function is to secrete mucus to keep the respiratory epithelium moist. So the Bowman's glands are located in the olfactory epithelium of our nose. This will be the correct answer. Right? So we can write this as Bowman glands are olfactory glands, right? Bowman's glands are olfactory glands that are present in the olfactory epithelium, okay, that are present in the olfactory epithelium. Okay, so Bowman's glands are olfactory glands that are present in the olfactory epithelium and which secrete mucus to keep the respiratory epithelium moist, to keep the respiratory epithelium moist. Okay, and we secrete mucus to keep the respiratory epithelium moist, right. Let us talk about the next question. Which one of the following does not act as a neurotransmitter? Yes. Acetylcholine, we all know, is a neurotransmitter, right? It is a neurotransmitter which is secreted by the ending of the nerves, nerve endings, right? Acetylcholine is a neurotransmitter, right? Acetylcholine is a neurotransmitter secreted by the nerve endings. Epinephrine and norepinephrine are secreted by the adrenal medulla, and these are also the what? The neurotransmitter. Epinephrine and norepinephrine secreted by adrenal medulla are also neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters. Right? However, cortisone is actually not a neurotransmitter. Okay, cortisone is itself, an inactive form which is released from the cortisol. So hence this will be the answer for this, that which one of the following does not act as a neurotransmitter, right. Let us go to the next question. Parkinson's disease, right? Parkinson's disease, which is characterized by tremors and progressive rigidity of the limbs, that is, this is due to a defect of that part of the brain which affects the movement, is caused by degeneration of brain neurons that are involved in movement control and make use of the neurotransmitter dopamine. Right. Once again, Parkinson's disease characterized by tremors and progressive rigidity. So what is happening in this disease? Sometimes they ask you even the symptoms seen in this disease. So characterized by tremors and progressive rigidity of the limbs, is caused by degeneration of brain neurons. Which part of the brain neurons? That are involved in the movement control, and they make use of the neurotransmitter called the dopamine. Right. Now we move on to the next question. What is the intensity of sound in the normal conversation? Right? What is the intensity of sound in normal conversation? It would be somewhere around 35 to 60 decibel. The intensity of sound in normal conversation is somewhere around 35 to 60 decibel. 35 to 60 decibel. Okay, like the intensity of sound, like in rockets and all. Okay, the rockets in the fuel engine, the rocket and the, although will be somewhere around 160, 170 decibel. Just for a reference, I am giving you the intensity of sound. The intensity of sound as in rocket engines will be 160 to 170 decibel. Right. So the answer over here would be 35 to 60 decibel. Let's go to the next question. The nasal granules of a nerve cell are made up of ribosomes, protein, DNA and RNA. Okay, so when we talk about the nerve cell or the neuron, what we will see right. This is this is the cyton, the axon, right, the cyton, the axon. Okay. Now what we will see over here, in this cyton there are these nasal granules. Okay. There are these nasal granules. Okay. And what will be the function of these nasal granules? So these basically nasal granules which are present in the cyton. Okay, these these may present also sometimes at the junction of the cyton and the axon. Now these nasal granules, they are basically made up of the ribosomes and the rough endoplasmic reticulum, and hence the major function would be the the protein synthesis. So we can write this as the nasal granules, right? The nasal granules are basically composed, right? These are basically composed of the ribosomes and rough endoplasmic reticulum and rough endoplasmic reticulum. Okay. So the nasal granules are basically composed of the ribosomes and rough endoplasmic reticulum, and hence are involved in the protein synthesis. Why? Because we all know that yes, the ribosomes are the protein factories. These are where the proteins are manufactured, and we all know that proteins are again these are very in fact almost all the substances in a body are actually the proteins. Okay. And as I told you, the nasal granules will be mostly present where in the cyton part of the neuron, sometimes even at the junction of the cyton at the axon, right. So the nasal granules of nerve cell are made up of what? They are made up of the ribosomes, right. So friends, we have come to the end of this session. The questionnaire again In the next session, we'll be talking about some other set of questions, okay, of the another chapter. I hope you did understand this very well. Any doubts, you can always get back to me. Okay, we will be doing another set of questions of the chapter in the next session. The time we meet again, a very goodbye from this side.